When I was bound to the conquest system, I thought my target was the sweet girl in the cubicle next to mine. Then the system's cold voice warned me. Error. Conquest target is your direct female superior. I looked at the queen of the business world, the woman who crushed competitors under her stilettos and smirked with ruby red lips, and the text message where I just secretly called her a menopausal old, which was simultaneously sent to her phone by the system. Now, she's walking toward me, swirling a glass of red wine, her smile so gentle it's terrifying. Darling, is there something you wanted to say to me? My eye twitched as I stared at the pop-up that had just materialized on my computer screen. It was a gaudy, chaotic mess like an ad for some scammy mobile game. Ding! Intense, dateless wonder, resentment, and corporate drone survival instinct detected. Binding hottie conquest system. Let us help you reach the pinnacle of life. You gotta be kidding me. Had I finally started hallucinating from all the overtime? What the hell was this? My hand instinctively moved the mouse toward the glaring red X in the top right corner. Warning, binding is irreversible. Abandoning the mission will trigger a 10 years of erectile dysfunction penalty. My finger froze over the mouse. A cold sweat instantly broke out across my back. This system was for real. Newbie tutorial initiating. Please confirm your conquest target. The screen flickered, shifting to what looked like a live feed from our office security cameras, locking directly onto the cubicle next to mine. It was Holly Jensen, the new intern in our department. She was wearing her hair in pigtails today, dressed in a preppy skirt, biting her lip as she typed away with a serious expression. Her profile was the definition of pure and adorable. My eyes lit up. Okay, this system had some potential. Holly was the dream girl of every single guy in our department, if not the whole company. She was sweet, had a gentle voice, and two little dimples when she smiled. If I could win her over. A grin spread uncontrollably across my face. I was already brainstorming names for our future kids. Sister bro, no. System daddy, confirm. It's her. Let's do this. I was so excited I nearly shot out of my chair, screaming internally. Target scanning. Scan complete. Name, Holly Jensen. Overall score, 85. Meets hottie standard. Conquest difficulty, easy. Error. Warning, higher priority target detected. Energy source is stronger, better suited to host corporate drone identity and stealth requirements. System is auto-correcting. The smile on my face froze solid. Wait, what? Auto-correcting. Hey, system daddy, don't. I like easy mode. I'm happy being a nobody. Don't you dare give me a hard mode. Panic set in. I prayed with all my might. Please don't let this thing assign me to the cleaning lady. Or Susan from the cafeteria, the one whose hand never trembles when she's scooping mashed potatoes. The screen flickered violently, like an old TV with bad reception. A second later, the image stabilized, but the person in it had changed. One look, and the blood in my veins turned to ice. The camera seemed to have zoomed up to the top floor of the company, into that spacious, lavish corner office. A woman stood with her back to the camera, gazing out the massive floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below. She wore a perfectly tailored black power suit, the skirt clinging to a waist that was slender yet radiated strength. Below the hem of the skirt, a pair of long legs sheathed in ultra-thin black stockings ended in a pair of sharp, stiletto heels that looked like they could puncture a man's skull. She turned slightly, swirling a glass of red wine. The sunset gilded her perfect profile, a high-nose bridge, subtly pursed red lips, and a jawline as sharp as a knife's edge. She was aggressively beautiful. Her eyes casually swept over the river of traffic outside, but there was no warmth in her gaze, only the cold, detached look of someone in absolute control. I swallowed hard, the sound so loud in the quiet office it nearly drew stares. In an instant, my shirt was soaked through with cold sweat. Isabella Sterling, the CEO of our company. Young, ruthless, and known in the industry as the Queen of Commerce, or more informally, a killer in Louboutins. Last I heard, a VP from a rival company tried to poach some of our talent, and somehow managed to piss her off. The story goes that she walked right up to him, swirling her wine just like that, smiled, and said a few words. A month later, his company declared bankruptcy, and the VP vanished from the industry. And I mean vanished. No one knew where he went. A woman like that. She was a work of art, sure, but a poisonous one. She was a deadly fusion of an iceberg and a volcano. Was she someone a low-level corporate drone like me could even dream of approaching? Hell, I wasn't even worthy of polishing her shoes. SSS system. My teeth were chattering. You've made a mistake. A huge mistake. Change it. Change it right now. This isn't a mission, it's a death sentence. Target locked. Name, Isabella Sterling. Identity, your direct female superior, CEO of Stellara Innovations. Overall score, 99. A perfect 10, a stone-cold queen. Conquest difficulty, hell. Ultimate mission, make Isabella Sterling say, I love you, and willingly give up her entire fortune to become your private property. Mission failure penalty, annihilation. I stared at the cold, clinical letters of hell on the screen, followed by the even colder, undisguised finality of annihilation. My vision went dark. I nearly passed out right there in my cubicle. Make Isabella Sterling fall in love with me, and give up her fortune to become my private property. If she didn't have me flayed alive and mounted on her office wall as a decorative piece, it would only be because she was having a particularly good day. Annihilation. Just do it. Do it now. Get over with. This was so much worse than 10 years of ED. Newbie perk activated. Snark cannon talent unlocked. Passive effect. Inner monologue snarkiness increased by 300%. Snarky thoughts will have a chance to convert into system energy, with a probability of triggering special rewards or special events. What the hell? The only thing I wanted to snark about right now was this goddamn stupid system. This was a newbie perk. This was a freaking death warrant. Special events. Can I just wait for my impending doom in peace? Starter item issued. Courage Gum X3. Effect. Upon chewing, user receives a minor courage boost and enhanced articulacy for 5 minutes. Note. Might help you string together a complete sentence in her presence. Current mission. Have a conversation with Isabella Sterling that lasts longer than 1 minute. Time limit. Before the end of today's workday. I looked at the 3 generic-looking sticks of gum in the system's inventory, then back at the mission objective. Talk to her. For more than a minute, just thinking about her face made my tongue twist into a pretzel. How was I supposed to complete this insane mission? Goddamn system. Screw you. Are you trying to mess with me? Is this a mission a human can actually complete? Isabella Sterling. She's a demon. A menopausal ice queen. A total psycho. The way she looks at me is no different from how she'd look at a cockroach on the floor. A conversation? It'll be a miracle if she doesn't kick me out a window just for looking at her wrong. I was fuming, tearing the system and Isabella to shreds in my mind. If I wasn't in the middle of the office, I would have just keeled over and played dead. After a minute of silent rage, I took a breath. Okay, I couldn't just give up. I had to think. At least those 3 sticks of gum might be useful. Ride the gum. Let's check it out. Maybe it's some kind of Black Ops tech. I focused my mind, trying to access the 3 sticks of gum in the system's inventory. Command unclear. Please confirm action. Withdraw Courage Gum X1. Yes/no. Yes, yes, yes. Get out here now. I yelled in my head. Command confirmed. Withdrawal successful. Addendum command recognized. Share withdrawn Courage Gum with Conquest target Isabella Sterling via text message, informing her of its use and effects. Executing addendum command. Sending text via host's personal cell phone. Text message sent successfully. I stare blankly. What? What sharing? What text message? What personal cell phone? My head snapped down. I fumbled frantically for my phone. The screen was still lit up. It showed a message, as delivered. The recipient, Isabella Sterling, Demon Queen. That was the contact name I had saved for her. And the message content was my furious, internal rant from moments ago, word for word. Isabella Sterling, she's a demon, a menopausal ice queen, a total psycho. The way she looks at me is no different from how she'd look at a cockroach on the floor. And right below it, the system had thoughtfully attached a picture of the Courage Gum, along with its usage instructions. I looked at that delivered notification. It felt like a bolt of lightning had struck me square on the head. I was toast, charred, utterly vaporized. My hand trembled, and the phone clattered onto the desk. It was over. It was all over. I was so dead. This wasn't annihilation. This was going to be a public execution, followed by my ashes being scattered into a toxic waste dump. My face was ashen. I was shaking uncontrollably, feeling my heart trying to beat its way out of my throat. The office air conditioning felt like knives slicing at my skin. I could already picture Isabella's expression when she saw that text. She would probably raise one of her perfectly sculpted eyebrows. Then a flicker of something amusing would dance in those beautiful, ice-cold eyes, the way a cat looks at a cornered, dying mouse. And then, my career, my life, would probably end today. No, my physical existence would probably end today. With a trembling hand, I reached for the phone, hoping for some kind of time travel or unsend feature. I would have even welcomed the phone exploding in my face right now. Anything was better than falling into Isabella Sterling's hands. The very second my fingertip touched the cold case of the phone, a powerful, glacial aura flooded the office from a main entrance. The open-plan workspace, which had been filled with a low hum of keyboards and quiet chatter, fell instantly silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone froze in place. I could clearly hear the frantic drumming of my own heart, about to shatter my ribs. Slowly, stiffly, I lifted my head. Like a condemned prisoner on the scaffold, I looked hopelessly in the direction of the falling blade. The door to the CEO's office, which had been closed, was now open, and Isabella Sterling was standing there. Her black suit made her skin look like snow and her lips like fire. She was holding the latest model of a sleek folding phone, its screen still illuminated. Her face was impassive, but her deep-set eyes cut straight across the entire office, precise and unerring. They were locked directly on my face. All the blood seemed to drain from my body, leaving my limbs cold and numb. She looked at me, and then, very, very slowly, the corners of her mouth curled into the faintest, most subtle of smiles. It wasn't a real smile. It was a shark baring its teeth before an attack. She started walking. The sharp clicks of her stilettos on the marble floor echoed with a crisp, rhythmic cadence. Click, click, click. In the dead-silent office, the sound was like a funeral bell, tolling with every beat of my heart. She was walking straight toward me. Somehow, a wine glass had appeared in her hand, a small amount of dark red liquid sloshing inside. She moved unhurriedly, with an almost predatory grace. But every step landed directly on my last nerve. My colleagues around me had their heads buried in their work, wishing they could crawl inside their computer monitors to avoid the fallout. I could only watch as she drew closer and closer. Her sharp, expensive perfume, mingled with the faint scent of wine, drifted to my nose. I could finally see the expression in her eyes. There was none of the fury I expected. Instead, there was a calm, playful mockery. She stopped right next to my cubicle, looking down at me from her commanding height. I was frozen in my chair, unable to move, unable to breathe. She leaned over slightly, placing the wine glass gently on my desk. It made a soft clink. Then she raised her hand. Her slender fingers, tipped with dark red nail polish, lightly tapped the system notification still on my monitor. Make Isabella Sterling say I love you. Her fingertip was ice cold. I felt the chill even through the screen. I nearly shot out of my chair in pure terror. She could see it. A soft chuckle escaped her red lips. It was laced with an unreadable tone. She retracted her finger, picked up the wine glass again, and her gaze fell back on my pale, terrified face. Her voice was as gentle as a lover's whisper, but made every hair on my body stand on end. My dear employee, it seems you have some very interesting ideas about me. Why don't we have a little chat about them? We can start with this passionate text message of yours. She angled her phone screen, showing me my own suicidal text. Or we could talk about this quaint little system of yours. Her smile grew wider, more brilliant, but her eyes were like frozen lakes, devoid of any warmth. Well, is there something you wanted to say to me? My mouth opened, but my throat felt like it was filled with cement. Not a single sound came out. My mind was a complete blank, except for two massive, bolded, underlined words. I'm screwed. Isabella Sterling stood right in front of me. The pointed toe of her stiletto was practically touching my shoe. The sheer force of her presence was crushing. I felt like a bug pinned to a specimen board. Struggling was not an option. Her words, every single one, was an icicle, stabbing into my eardrums. She saw the text. And she seemed to know about the system. How is that possible? Wasn't this system some kind of advanced technology? Wasn't it bound to me? How could a real-world CEO know about it? My brain was a chaotic mess, a pot of overcooked oatmeal. My heart was about to explode. All the blood in my body rushed to my face, making it burn, but my limbs were as cold as if they'd just been pulled from a freezer. Ms. Sterling, that text, it was... My tongue was tied in knots. I was completely incoherent. My voice was trembling so badly I could barely hear myself. I wanted to slap myself across the face. Isabella just watched me. That same smirk played on her lips. She was in no hurry. She seemed to be enjoying the sight of me on the verge of soiling myself. She even had the leisure to lift her glass and take a delicate sip of the dark red liquid. The wine stained her lips, making them look fuller, wetter, and more like a blood-drenched blade. She made a soft, questioning sound, her tone rising slightly. An unspoken demand for an answer. What about the text? Did someone take your phone? Or could it be? She leaned forward, getting even closer. That cold perfume, mixed with the scent of wine, rushed into my nostrils. It was dangerously alluring. Your true feelings. Her voice dropped to a low, husky whisper. It was like a feather brushing against the most sensitive part of my heart. Terrifyingly ticklish. Terrifyingly lethal. My scalp prickled. No, absolutely not. Miss Sterling, please, let me explain. I shot to my feet, nearly knocking over my chair. My voice cracked, suddenly shrill and piercing in the silent office. The colleagues pretending to work around me ducked their heads even lower, but I didn't care anymore. That text, it was, I was sweating bullets, desperate. It was the system. Yes, a stupid system sent it on its own. It bound itself to me. It's forcing me to conquer you. If I fail the mission, it'll annihilate me. That text wasn't my real thoughts. It made me do it. It has some kind of snark cannon talent that broadcasted what I was thinking. Miss Sterling, you have to believe me. I have nothing but the utmost respect for you. I revere you. I worship you. You are my guiding light, the North Star of my life. I threw everything I had into it. The words tumbled out of my mouth like machine gun fire. I sold the system out completely. Not that I knew if the damn thing could even be sold out. But a dying man will try anything. It was better than being executed on the spot by Ms. Sterling for being a perverted creep. Isabella listened to my illogical, tear-streaked confession. The expression on her face didn't change at all. She didn't even blink. She just watched me quietly, waited for me to finish my rant. The office plunged back into an eerie silence. Only my own ragged breathing echoed in the space, making me sound like a complete idiot. After a few seconds, Isabella finally raised an eyebrow slightly. A system? Conquer me? Annihilation? She repeated the keywords, her tone as flat as if she were reciting the day's weather report. Then, she let out a soft laugh. That sounds far more interesting than the rest of the garbage you just spouted. I choked. I just stared at her dumbfounded. Interesting. What part of this was interesting? This was life-threatening, lady. Ms. Sterling. This isn't interesting at all. My face was a mask of misery. That system is for real. It's really going to annihilate me. Isabella swirled her wine, a flicker of something unreadable in her eyes. Oh, then what do you plan to do? Obey its commands. Her gaze fell on my face again. It was probing, analytical, and laced with a cruel amusement. And come conquer me. My knees went weak. I almost dropped to the floor. Never. Absolutely not. Miss Sterling, you could give me 100 shots of courage, and I still wouldn't dare. I have only the purest respect and admiration for you. Absolutely no improper thoughts. There's no way I can complete that stupid system's mission. I'd rather be annihilated than ever offend you. I pledged my loyalty so hard I wanted to rip my heart out to show her. Isabella listened. She gave no reaction. She just took another sip of wine. Then, she suddenly took a step closer to me. That single step, it shattered the professional distance between us. I could see the flutter of her eyelashes and a deeply hidden flicker of amusement in the depths of her eyes. She was too close. So close I could feel the warmth of her breath. It smelled of rich red wine. My entire body went rigid. I didn't dare move. My heart was about to leap out of my throat and slap her in the face. She lifted her free hand. Slowly, it reached for my face. I squeezed my eyes shut. This is it. She's going to hit me. A slap? Or is she going to poke my eyes out? With her strength, a slap from Miss Sterling would probably send me spinning like a top. The pain I anticipated never came. I only felt the brush of cool fingers. They lightly touched my earlobe, then traced a path downward. The back of her nails, grazing my jawline with a deliberate, teasing slowness. The gesture was full of a casual, mocking intimacy. My eyes flew open. I met her gaze just inches away. Her eyes were bottomless pits, swirling with emotions I couldn't begin to understand. You wouldn't dare. You don't want to. She repeated my words. Her voice was even lower, even softer, like a lover's whisper, but filled with icy sarcasm. 10 years of erectile dysfunction versus annihilation. You'd really choose annihilation? My pupils dilated in shock. She knew about that, too. She knew about the penalty the stupid system gave me. What the hell was going on? My brain completely short-circuited. I couldn't process anything that was happening. Isabella watched me, completely broken. The curve of her lips seemed to deepen. She pulled her hand back, stepped away, resuming her untouchable Ice Queen CEO persona, as if that intimate, teasing gesture had just been a figment of my imagination. It seems. Your system didn't tell you. Her gaze swept over me, and was that a hint of pity? That I am far more terrifying than it is. With that, she turned away and walked back to her office. Click, 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 leaving me alone, frozen in place, like a broken puppet. My mind was buzzing, her last words echoing over and over. Far more terrifying than the system. What did that mean? Who was she? How did she know about the system? Wasn't this thing supposed to be some high-tech, higher-dimensional entity? Why did it sound like a cheap toy coming from her? And that gesture just now. What did that mean? Was she teasing me? Warning me? Or something else entirely? I couldn't think straight. I felt like my entire worldview had been thrown into a blender and pureed. Ding. My phone chimed. I flinched. Trembling, I picked it up. It was a system notification. Warning. Conquest target's affinity for host is critically low, with extremely high levels of disgust and killing intent detected. Emergency mission issued. Eliminate Isabella Sterling's killing intent and raise her affinity for the host to 0, non-negative, or higher. Time limit, 1 hour. Mission reward, survival point +1. Failure penalty, immediate annihilation. I stared at the cold text on the screen, especially the glaring words killing intent. A chill shot up from the soles of my feet to the top of my head. Isabella Sterling actually wanted to kill me because of that text, or because I found out she could sense the system. Either way, I was dead. 1 hour. To raise her affinity from I want to murder him to at least I don't actively hate him. How was that possible? That was harder than being asked to build a rocket and fly to the moon right now. I looked up in despair at the closed door of the CEO's office. It wasn't an office door. It was the gate to hell. And Isabella Sterling was the beautiful and deadly demon guarding it. I collapsed into my chair. All my strength was gone. What do I do? What the hell do I do? Go up there and beg for my life? Cling to her leg and cry about how the system forced me? She'd probably kick me away and have security throw me out. Or pretend nothing happened? Just keep working? But the damn system would annihilate me in an hour. I was like a cat on a hot tin roof, pacing in my mind. My gaze fell on the system's inventory. The 3 sticks of courage gum were still there. Courage gum. Upon chewing, user receives a minor courage boost and enhanced articulacy for 5 minutes. Note, might help you string together a complete sentence in her presence. In this situation, one complete sentence was useless. I needed something that would make her not want to kill me. Wait, I suddenly remembered what Isabella said earlier. It seems your system didn't tell you that I am far more terrifying than it is. She seemed very interested in the system itself, and not me, the host. A crazy idea suddenly popped into my head. It was probably even more suicidal, but I was going to die anyway. Might as well go out with a bang. I took a deep breath, focusing with all my might. System, withdraw courage gum X1. Command confirmed. Withdrawal successful. A stick of green and white striped gum appeared in my palm. It had a faint minty smell, I looked at the gum. Then I looked at the CEO's office door. My heart pounded against my ribs. Screw it. If I'm going to die, I'm going to die. I shoved the gum into my mouth and chewed furiously. An intense, cooling mint sensation shot through my brain. It cleared my head a little. At the same time, a strange surge of courage, or maybe just a reckless, nothing-to-lose bravado, washed over me. My legs didn't feel so weak anymore. I stood up, under the shocked and slightly admiring gazes of my colleagues. With the grim determination of a man walking to his own execution, I marched toward the CEO's office. Thump, thump, thump. My footsteps echoed in the empty hallway, each one landing in time with my own frantic heartbeat. The closer I got to that door, the more the mint-fueled courage evaporated. Fear seized my throat again, but there was no turning back now. I stopped in front of the door, raised a trembling hand, and knocked. Knock, knock, knock. The sound was dry and thin. Silence from within for a few seconds. Then a cold voice. Enter. I pushed the door open. The office was huge, luxurious. Isabella Sterling was sitting behind a massive desk, backlit by the setting sun streaming through the window. Her entire figure was shrouded in a halo of dark gold light. I couldn't see her expression. She was toying with a fountain pen. She didn't look up at me. Speak. One word. Concise. An undeniable command. My throat was dry. The courage gum was still working. It allowed me to form a coherent thought. Ms. Sterling, about that system, I started, my voice still shaking a little. Isabella's hand stilled. She finally looked up. The sunlight traced the perfect line of her profile. Her eyes were deep and dark. Oh, figured it out. Ready to start your conquest mission. Her tone was dripping with sarcasm. My scalp prickled. I shook my head frantically. No, absolutely not. I came here to propose a partnership. A partnership? Isabella looked like she just heard the funniest joke in the world, the corner of her mouth twitching. You? With me? Yes. I threw caution to the wind, my words speeding up. Miss Sterling, you seem to know a lot about this system. Maybe even more than it knows itself. I watched her reaction closely. Isabella didn't deny it, but she didn't confirm it either. The amusement in her eyes just seemed to grow. She didn't speak, as if waiting for me to continue. I took a deep breath. This system forced itself on me, giving me impossible missions with deadly penalties. It's obviously up to no good, and you seem to have a way of dealing with it. Since we're both being targeted by it, why can't we work together? You figure out how to get this thing off me, and I'll be your loyal servant for life. I'll do anything you say. I threw out every word I could think of. My heart was about to burst. Isabella listened quietly. Her fingers tapped lightly on the desk. Tap, tap, tap. Every tap was on my last nerve. When I finished, the office fell into a dead silence. She didn't speak for a long time. She just stared at me with that probing, unreadable gaze. It made my skin crawl. The effects of the courage gum were starting to fade. Fear began to creep back in. This is it. She definitely thinks I'm a lunatic. Just as I was about to give up and beg for mercy, she finally spoke. Her voice was calm, devoid of any emotion. A partnership is possible. I looked up sharply, a spark of hope in my eyes. A chance. But her next words threw me right back into hell. But I never make a losing deal. You want my help? She leaned forward, her gaze pressing down on me like a physical weight. What price can you pay? Or rather, what value do you have? That's worth my time. I froze. Price. Value. I was just an ordinary office drone. No money, no power, no connections. What could I possibly offer her? My worthless life? She clearly didn't need that. Seeing me speechless, Isabella seemed disappointed. She leaned back in her chair and waved a dismissive hand. It seems you haven't thought this through. Get out. When you have, you can come find me. But it seems your time is running out. She glanced meaningfully at the clock on the wall. Less than 40 minutes left on the system's 1-hour deadline. I stumbled out of the CEO's office in a daze and collapsed back into my cubicle. I felt like my soul had been sucked out. The path to cooperation seemed to be blocked. Isabella was right. Why should she help me? I had no value. Was I really just going to wait to die? I looked at the countdown timer on my computer screen. Time remaining. 00:37:12 the seconds ticked away. Let my life draining out. My colleagues seemed to notice something was wrong. but no one dared to ask. I slumped onto my desk and closed my eyes in despair. Damn this system. Damn this life. If I could do it all over, I'd have become a monk. Just as I was about to give up and write my will, a ding went off in my head. Host's intense will to survive and extreme despair detected. Hidden condition met. Psycho Stalker's Sweetheart module is being force-activated. Activation successful. Module effect. When conquest target experiences extreme negative emotions toward the host, e.g., killing intent, disgust, hatred, there's a chance for these emotions to convert into equally extreme possessiveness and desire for control. Note, the line between love and hate is thin. Overwhelming hatred might just become an all-consuming, suffocating love. I shot upright in my chair. My eyes were wide. Psycho Stalker Sweetheart module. What the hell is that? Hatred turning into possessiveness. What kind of dangerous game was this? Did this stupid system think I wasn't dying fast enough? Wasn't Isabella crazy enough already? It had to give her a power-up. I was so angry I almost coughed up blood. But then, an even crazier, more suicidal idea wormed its way into my brain, unbidden. Since the normal way wasn't working, begging was useless. Cooperation was impossible. Then, what if I used this newly activated Psycho Stalker module to my advantage? Isabella wanted to kill me, right? She hated me for insulting her and for trying to conquer her, right? What if I provoked her even more? Pushed her killing intent and disgust to the absolute limit? Would it, as the system suggested, trigger some kind of extreme possessiveness? It sounded less like dancing on the edge of a knife and more like doing a jig on a pile of dynamite. But I was going to die anyway. Might as well go out in a blaze of glory. What if this insane long shot actually worked? The thought, once it appeared, spread like wildfire in my mind. I couldn't suppress it. I looked at the ever-decreasing countdown. My eyes were bloodshot. I'll do it. To hell with it. It's just suicide, right? I can do that. I focused my mind again and looked at the system's inventory. There were still 2 sticks of courage gum left. System, give me another one. Command confirmed. Withdrawal successful. Another stick of gum appeared in my hand. I didn't even look at it. I just shoved it in my mouth and started chewing like a madman. The intense mint flavor hit my brain again. But this time, it didn't bring clarity. It brought a near-maniacal recklessness and impulsiveness. Screw Ms. Sterling. Screw conquering. Screw annihilation. Today, I was going to be a warrior. I shot to my feet. Once again, under the horrified gazes of my colleagues, I stormed toward the CEO's office. This time, I didn't knock. I just grabbed the handle, twisted, and burst in. Bang! The door slammed against the wall, making a loud crack. Isabella was clearly startled by the sudden intrusion. She looked up, saw it was me, and her brows knitted together. Her eyes were already flashing with clear annoyance. Who let you? She didn't finish. I cut her off. I stormed up to her desk, slammed both hands on the expensive wood, and leaned forward, fueled by the fake courage from the gum. I stared directly into her suddenly glacial eyes and yelled, Isabella Sterling, don't you think you're so great just because you're pretty and rich and powerful? Let me tell you something. I'm done. I'm not playing your game anymore. Your stupid system. I'm not doing its conquest mission. If it wants to annihilate me, let it. In 18 years, I'll be a new man. But you want me to bow and scrape before you, in your dreams. A psycho, menopausal, old witch like you who has nothing in her life but work. You deserve to die alone. I practically screamed the entire tirade. Panting, my eyes were red, like a gambler who had just lost everything. The air in the office, after I yelled that last word, instantly dropped to absolute zero. Silence. Dead silence. I could hear my own ragged breathing and the frantic pounding of my heart. Isabella sat there, perfectly still. The expression on her face hadn't changed. No anger, no surprise. She was even calmer than before. But her eyes, in the depths of her eyes, something extremely dark, extremely dangerous, was slowly waking up. Like a dormant volcano about to erupt. Slowly, very slowly, she put down her pen. She leaned back slightly in her chair, folded her hands on the desk. Her gaze was like a scalpel, slicing over my face, inch by inch. After a full 10 seconds, just as the courage gum was wearing off and my legs were starting to tremble again, she finally spoke. Her voice was soft, slow, but it was laced with a chilling amusement. Excellent. Finally, this is getting a little interesting. I stared into her bottomless eyes. It felt like something in them had come alive, slowly twisting and squirming with a cold, feverish madness. After I'd roared out that suicidal monologue, the last of my artificial courage evaporated. My knees buckled, and I nearly collapsed onto her expensive Persian rug. The cold sweat was back, drenching my shirt. What? What did I just say? Am I completely insane? Did I really just point at her and call her an old witch who deserved to die alone? This wasn't just suicidal anymore. This was like tying myself up, basting myself in barbecue sauce, and diving headfirst into the T-Rex enclosure, asking if she wanted a side of fries with that. I was dead. So dead. I squeezed my eyes shut, bracing for the final judgment. Maybe she'd hit the panic button and have security drag me out. Maybe she'd take that heavy-looking fountain pen and personally stab me to death. Or worse, she'd just smile, say, "Excellent," and then I'd be fired tomorrow for taking the wrong elevator and blacklisted from the entire industry, left to die in a gutter. Seconds ticked by. The explosion of rage I expected never came. The office was terrifyingly quiet. The only sound was my own heart, hammering like a drum solo. I couldn't help it. I cracked open an eyelid. Isabella was still in the same position, hands folded, leaning back in her chair. Her expression was strange, not angry, not cold. There was even the faintest, almost imperceptible hint of satisfaction. She tilted her head slightly, her gaze still locked on my face, like she was admiring a toy that had finally started doing something interesting. Finally, this is getting a little interesting, she repeated. Her voice was light, but each word was an ice pick in my ear. I shuddered, completely unable to process the situation. Shouldn't she be furious? Shouldn't she be screaming at me to get out? What did a little interesting even mean? Looks like that pathetic little dose of courage has worn off already. Has it? She said, her red lips curving into a smirk that was pure mockery. My throat was sandpaper. I couldn't get a single word out. I just stood there, rigid, a prisoner awaiting his sentence. Isabella seemed to relish my fear. She savored my pathetic state for a few more seconds. Then, she slowly rose to her feet. She circled around her massive desk. Her stilettos made no sound on the plush carpet, but each silent step landed squarely on my heart. She walked toward me. That overpowering aura of cold perfume and danger enveloped me again. I instinctively wanted to back away, but my feet felt like they were nailed to the floor. She stopped right in front of me, close, so close I could see each of her individual eyelashes, and the reflection of my own pale, terrified face in her dark pupils. She raised her hand. I flinched, shutting my eyes and ducking my head, but the slap or chokehold I expected never came. Cool fingertips landed gently on my tie. She hooked a finger around the cheap, wrinkled fabric and casually looped it around. Then, she gave a sharp tug. Caught off guard, I stumbled forward, nearly crashing into her. My nose was filled with her cold, intoxicating scent. I scrambled to brace myself against the edge of her desk to keep from falling. My heart was about to pound its way out of my chest. With this little courage, she murmured, looking down at the tie in her hand, her tone dripping with contempt. "You dare to run your mouth? You think you're worthy of conquering me?" The tie was pulled tight, choking me slightly. If I didn't dare move, I was trapped in this intimate, almost embrace-like position. Breathing was difficult. I wasn't. I tried to explain, my voice trembling uncontrollably. She raised her other hand, pressing a cool fingertip gently against my lips. I fell silent instantly, every hair on my body standing on end. "You had quite the backbone when you were cursing me out, didn't you?" she whispered, leaning closer. Her warm breath ghosted over my ear, her voice a terrifyingly intimate murmur. This pathetic display now is truly disappointing. Her finger lingered on my lips for a second before sliding down my chin, finally coming up to pat my cheek. The gesture was utterly humiliating. My face was on fire. A mix of shame and fear made me want to disappear into the floor. However, her tone shifted. She let go of my tie, but her fingers trailed slowly down my chest, finally slipping into the pocket of my slacks. I went rigid, feeling a trail of ice where her hand had been. She pulled out my employee ID card. She flipped it over in her hand, giving it a casual glance. Project Department, Leo Carter? She read my name and department, her voice flat. Then, she looked up, her eyes landing on my face once more. Starting tomorrow, you no longer need to report to the project department. My stomach dropped. Here it comes. She's finally firing me. You're being reassigned to the CEO's office. As my personal assistant. The words left her red lips. I looked up sharply, my eyes wide, certain I had misheard. Beer. Personal assistant. A promotion? Not fired. What kind of new torture was this? Miss Sterling? I'm afraid I'm not qualified. I instinctively tried to refuse. Being her assistant, that meant being under her watch 24/7. Would I even survive? Qualified? She let out a soft laugh, tossing my ID card back at me. Do you think I was asking for your opinion? Her eyes instantly turned to ice, radiating an authority that could not be questioned. Assistant Carter, remember your first duty. Learn to obey. I clutched the cold plastic ID card. It felt like a branding iron. Now get out. She turned her back to me and walked toward the window. Be here at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I don't want you to be a single second late. Otherwise, she didn't finish the sentence. But the unspoken threat was more terrifying than any words. I practically scrambled out of her office. Back at my desk, I was still in a complete daze. My colleagues shot me complex looks, pity, curiosity, a little bit of schadenfreude, but I couldn't be bothered. My mind was replaying Isabella's words. Personal assistant. Obey. What the hell was happening? Shouldn't she have destroyed me? Why did she give me a promotion? Could it be that damn psycho stalker sweetheart module actually worked? Did she convert her killing intent into some kind of twisted desire for control? Keep me by her side to play with me until I broke? The thought sent a fresh wave of terror through my barely calm nerves. Ding! Emergency mission complete. Isabella Sterling's killing intent toward the host has been temporarily eliminated. Affinity has increased to -10, up from -100, but still negative. Reward. Survival point +1 has been issued. The system notification chimed in right on cue. I looked at the -10 affinity and the words temporarily eliminated and didn't know whether to laugh or cry. This counted as completing the mission? -10 affinity. Temporarily eliminated? How is that any different from being given a death sentence with a possibility of parole? And what good was one survival point? Was it going to let me live 1 second longer? I slumped in my chair, completely devoid of hope. The next day, I arrived outside the CEO's office half an hour early, sporting 2 massive dark circles under my eyes. I was wearing my best suit, but it still looked like a cheap knockoff next to her high-end couture. In my hand, I clutched a coffee and a breakfast bag I'd picked up on the way. I had no idea if she'd eaten, but it felt like the right thing to do. I felt like a prisoner waiting for his execution. At 7:59 and 50 seconds a.m., the crisp sound of stilettos echoed from down the hall. Click, click, click. Unhurried, precise, perfectly on schedule. My back went rigid. I straightened up and held my breath. Isabella Sterling appeared at the end of the corridor. Today she was in a navy blue velvet pantsuit that made her skin look even paler. Her hair was pulled back, revealing the elegant line of her neck. She wore sunglasses, her red lips a slash of color against her face. Without a single glance in my direction, she walked straight to her office door. I quickly stepped forward and opened it for her. Good morning, Miss Sterling. My voice was dry. She paused for a fraction of a second, her gaze seeming to sweep over me from behind the dark lenses. She said nothing and walked inside. I hurried in after her, carefully placing the coffee and pastry bag on her desk. Miss Sterling, I wasn't sure if you'd had breakfast, so I bought some coffee and throw it out. She took off her sunglasses, tossing them on the desk without even looking at the food. Her voice was cold. Yes, ma'am. I choked back a reply, silently picking up the items to go throw them away. Stop. She sat down and powered on her computer. As my assistant, your first task is to learn my preferences and habits. I don't drink cheap chain store coffee. For breakfast, I only eat croissants made fresh by the head chef at the St. Regis and a specific brand of yogurt. Remember that. If you get it wrong again, you can eat it all yourself. Yes, Miss Sterling. Now go make me a coffee. The beans are in the second cabinet on the right. The grinder is next to it. Water temperature at 198 degrees Fahrenheit, 30-second extraction time. Milk steamed to 149 degrees, 1 centimeter foam. She rattled off the instructions without looking up. My scalp tingled with anxiety. The most complex coffee I'd ever made was a 3-in-1 instant packet. This was more precise than a chemistry experiment. Ms. Sterling, I've never used one of those machines before. I tried to protest. Isabella finally looked up at me. Her expression was blank. Learn. Or you can go to HR, collect your final paycheck, and leave. Resigned to my fate, I walked over to the coffee machine that looked like it cost more than my car. I fumbled with the grinder, searched for a thermometer, and struggled for what felt like an eternity. The entire time, Isabella sat there working, acting as if I didn't exist. Occasionally, if I made a slightly loud noise, she would frown, which was enough to make me instantly quiet down. Finally, after a Herculean effort, I produced a cup of what vaguely resembled coffee. I presented it to her, my hands trembling. She picked it up, inspected the foam, and took a small sip. She put the cup down. Too bitter. You ground the beans, half a setting too coarse. The milk is at least 5 degrees too hot. The texture is off. Do it again. Her tone was flat, not angry, but it felt worse than being yelled at. Yes, ma'am. My entire morning was spent in this state of high-pressure, clumsy servitude. It took 5 attempts before she gave a grudging nod for the coffee. I had to organize her files 3 times because the order was wrong. I fielded countless calls, only allowed to answer when she gestured, and had to perfectly judge which calls to transfer and which to take a message for. One wrong word earned me a glacial stare. I felt like a spinning top, constantly being whipped by her, never allowed to stop. My nerves were shot. The back of my shirt was soaked through with sweat. By lunchtime, she finally closed the last file. I let out a small sigh of relief, thinking I could finally breathe. Order lunch, she commanded, looking at her phone. The executive lunch set from the St. Regis. Have them deliver it to the conference room. Also, there's a video call with Mr. Henderson from Apex at 3 p.m. The files are on my D drive in the afternoon meeting folder. Print them out and organize them. At 4 p.m., I want to see a summary of last week's reports from all departments, using my preferred template. At 5:30, remind me to leave for the gala at the plaza. She spoke rapidly, one command after another. I frantically typed it all into my phone's notes app, and she put down her phone and looked at me. You'll join me for lunch in the conference room. I blinked, sure I'd misheard. Ms. Sterling, I could just grab something from the cafeteria. Eating with her, I'd probably get indigestion from stress. I told you to order 2 sets. Do you not understand English? Her eyes narrowed. Yes, ma'am. Ordering now. I looked down, not daring to argue further. The feeling of unease in my gut intensified. Lunch arrived quickly. The massive conference room was empty except for the 2 of us. She sat at the head of the long table. I carefully chose a seat at the far opposite end. The food was exquisite, but I couldn't taste a thing. I ate carefully, terrified of making the slightest noise. Isabella ate very little, her movements elegant. She occasionally glanced up at me, and her gaze made me feel like I was sitting on a bed of nails. Not to your liking? She asked suddenly. No, it's delicious. I denied immediately. Is it? She put down her utensils and wiped her mouth with a napkin. Then why are you eating like a mouse stealing crumbs? Sit closer, she commanded, gesturing with her chin to the seat beside her. Miss Sterling, I'm fine here. Do I need to repeat myself? Her voice grew cold. I gritted my teeth and shuffled over, taking the seat 1 chair away from her. Closer. I sighed and moved 1 more seat over. Now only a single empty chair separated us. She seemed satisfied and didn't push further, but she didn't speak either, just scrolled through her phone. The silent pressure was even worse. I wanted to shovel the food down and escape as fast as I could. Suddenly, without any warning, she reached her hand toward my face. I recoiled so fast I almost fell out of my chair. Don't move, she commanded. Her fingers gently wiped something from the corner of my mouth. You have sauce on your face. Her fingertip was cool, the touch startlingly clear. My face flushed hot, and my heart hammered against my ribs. Thank you, Miss Sterling. She pulled her hand back and picked up a napkin, slowly wiping her fingers. Her gaze, however, remained fixed on my beet-red face with a look of playful scrutiny. "Why are you so nervous? Afraid I'm going to eat you?" Her tone was laced with obvious amusement. I looked down, not daring to meet her eyes, and just pushed the food around my plate. "Did you memorize your afternoon tasks?" She changed the subject. "Yes, I did." "Recite them." I had to put down my fork and repeat her lunchtime instructions, one by one. "Good," she nodded when I finished. "Your memory is acceptable, which means you aren't an idiot. So why do you insist on doing such idiotic things?" This meal was impossible. I practically fled the conference room the second lunch was over. The afternoon was even more of a trial by fire. I printed the meeting documents, but the formatting was wrong, so I had to do it again. I summarized the reports, but used the wrong template, so I had to redo them. I reminded her of the meeting time 1 minute too early and was met with a withering glare. I felt like a complete failure. In her presence, I couldn't seem to do a single thing right. Every mistake was met with her cold gaze and merciless correction. But strangely, she never lost her temper. It was the constant, high-pressure, surgical precision of her criticism that was stretching my nerves to their breaking point. I almost missed the days when she would just call me names. At least that was quick. At 5:25 p.m., I knocked on her office door. "Ms. Sterling, it's 5:25. You should be leaving for the plaza soon." She was putting on her coat. She paused. "Is the car ready?" "Not yet. I'll call the driver right now." I blanched, realizing I'd forgotten to give the driver a heads up, and turned to run. "Stay." She stopped me, picking up her handbag. "You're driving?" "Me?" I gaped at her. "Ms. Sterling, I've never driven a car that nice." Her company car was a top-of-the-line luxury sedan. My beat-up Civic was a tin can by comparison. "Do you have a license?" "Well, yes, but..." "No buts." She tossed the car keys at me. "Basement garage, B-level, spot 001. Go get it." The command was absolute. I held the heavy key fob, my palms sweating. I had no choice but to head to the garage. I found the car, sleek, beautiful, and worth more than my life, and slid carefully into the driver's seat. It took me several minutes to adjust the seat and mirrors before I tremulously started the engine. After a nerve-wracking drive up the ramp, I pulled up to the front of the building. Isabella was already waiting. She opened the passenger door and got in. Her cold perfume instantly filled the small space. I was so nervous my hands were slick with sweat as I gripped the steering wheel. "The navigation is already set," she said coolly, fastening her seatbelt. "Yes, ma'am." I took a deep breath and gently pressed the accelerator. The car glided smoothly into traffic. It was rush hour, and the streets were packed. I drove with extreme caution, my focus absolute. If I put so much as a scratch on this car, I have to sell a kidney to pay for it. Isabella seemed tired. She leaned back against the headrest and closed her eyes. The car was silent except for the soft whir of the AC. I relaxed a little. I snuck a glance at her. With her eyes closed, she lost some of her sharp, aggressive edge. Her long eyelashes cast soft shadows on her cheeks. She almost looked gentle. "Ugh, stop it, Leo. What are you thinking? This was the woman who could eat you alive." I quickly turned my attention back to the road. Suddenly, a car from the next lane swerved aggressively, cutting me off. I yelped, instinctively yanking the wheel and slamming on the brakes. The car lurched violently. Isabella was jolted awake, her brow furrowed in annoyance. "Sorry, Miss Sterling. Someone cut me off." I apologized, my heart racing. She didn't speak, just shot a cold glare at the car that had already sped off. Then, her gaze shifted back to me. "Pull over." My stomach sank. This is it. I screwed up. Is she going to kick me out of the car? I obeyed, carefully maneuvering the car to the side of the road. I lowered my head, ready for the verdict. "Unbuckle your seatbelt," she commanded. I paused, confused, but did as she said. Before I could process what she was doing, she leaned across the center console, pressing her body toward me. Her scent enveloped me. I recoiled in shock, my head hitting the window with a dull thud. I didn't even feel the pain. I just stared at her in terror. "Miss Sterling." She was extremely close, her face just inches from mine. Her eyes were dark and intense, radiating an undeniable power. One of her hands braced against the back of my seat, while the other reached for my waist. My body went rigid, my mind blank. What was she doing? Here, in the car. Was she insane? Her hand fumbled at my side for a moment before grabbing my seatbelt. Click! She buckled it back into place for me. It turned out that in my panic, the seatbelt hadn't fully retracted and was stuck. She was just fixing my seatbelt. I was frozen, my heart pounding, my face burning. Her position had me almost completely cornered, practically held in her arms that a strand of her hair brushed against my cheek. I could feel her breath on my skin. "You need to wear your seatbelt properly," she said, not moving away immediately. She held my gaze, her voice low, laced with something that sounded dangerously like flirtation. "My assistant can't have any accidents." Her gaze was a finely woven net, trapping me completely. I held my breath, not daring to move. After all, the corner of her lip curled up. Her fingertip traced the seat belt buckle, making a soft scratching sound. "You are my property." After saying the word property, her finger lightly brushed against my chin. Then she slowly sat back in her seat. As if nothing had happened, she closed her eyes again. "Drive." Her voice was back to its usual cold tone. I was still frozen. My heart was about to leap out of my throat. My face and ears were hot enough to fry an egg. Her words, her proximity, her breath, they all replayed in my mind. My property. The word like a magic spell, tightening around my brain. Was I losing my mind? Did I just feel a sliver of twisted satisfaction from that? I shook my head violently, trying to clear the terrifying thought. My hands were numb as I gripped the steering wheel again. I took several deep breaths to steady myself before pulling back into traffic. For the rest of the drive, I was even more cautious, my nerves stretched to the limit. I was afraid of making another mistake. Isabella kept her eyes closed, as if she had fallen asleep. But I knew she wasn't sleeping. Her very presence was the ultimate source of pressure. Finally, we arrived at the plaza. I parked the car and rushed out to open her door. She opened her eyes. They were clear, not a hint of sleepiness in them. She glanced at me, said nothing, and walked toward the grand entrance. I locked the car and hurried after her. As her assistant, I naturally had to accompany her to the evening's event. I stood in the corner of the ballroom like a piece of furniture. I watched her effortlessly navigate conversations with other executives, her charisma and power on full display. She was a completely different person from the dangerous, flirtatious woman in the car. My feelings were a tangled mess. On one hand, I was terrified of her. On the other, I couldn't stop myself from sneaking glances at her. The way she radiated confidence, the way her white neck arched when she took a sip of champagne, the sharp glint in her eye when she sealed the deal. She had a fatal sort of charm. You know it's dangerous, but you can't help but be drawn in. I pinched my own thigh hard. "Get a grip, Leo. That's Isabella Sterling. She could crush you without a second thought. Stop with the stupid fantasies." The gala went on late into the night. She drank quite a bit, and her cold perfume mingled with the scent of alcohol, becoming rich and intoxicating. I was driving on the way back. She seemed genuinely a bit drunk this time, leaning against the headrest and rubbing her temples, not saying a word. The car was quiet. I snuck a peek at her in the rearview mirror. Her cheeks were flushed, softening her usual sharp features. She looked more languid, almost vulnerable. I found myself staring. "Do you like the view?" She spoke suddenly. Her eyes were still closed, her voice raspy from the alcohol. I jumped, guiltily snapping my gaze back to the road. And no, I wasn't looking. Liar. She let out a soft laugh and opened her eyes. She met my gaze in the rearview mirror, her eyes hazy but still piercing. My face was on fire again. "Just drive," she said, not pressing the issue, and closed her eyes again. "If we crash, I'm not taking the blame." We drove the rest of the way in silence. I pulled up to her mansion. I stopped the car, hesitating about whether I should walk her to the door. "Get out," she commanded, unbuckling her seatbelt. I had no choice but to get out and follow her. Her steps were a little unsteady. I instinctively reached out to support her. The moment my fingers touched her arm, she grabbed my hand in a vice grip. Her fingers were cold, but her grip was strong, squeezing my wrist until it hurt. "Who told you could touch me?" she hissed, turning her head. In the dim light, her eyes looked terrifying. They were hazy with alcohol, but also filled with a fierce, defensive aggression. "Sorry, Miss Sterling. I saw you were a little unsteady. I was just afraid you'd fall." I tried to pull my hand back. She squeezed tighter, yanking me toward her. I stumbled, nearly crashing into her. Unsteady, she leaned in, her alcohol-tinged breath hot on my face. "You think a little wine like this can knock me out, Assistant Carter?" Her other hand came up, cool fingertips once again tracing my cheek. Her voice dropped to a low whisper, like a snake's hiss. "Don't be clever, and don't get any ideas. Just because I let you get close doesn't mean you can cross the line." Her fingers slid to my chin, forcing me to look up at her. "Remember your place. You are my thing." With that, she abruptly let me go. She turned, entered her code, and walked inside. Thud! The heavy door shut in my face, isolating me from everything inside. I stood alone in the cold night wind. My wrist and jaw still tingled from her touch, cold and hot at the same time. My heart felt like it had been squeezed, a mix of sourness, bitterness, and an inexplicable sense of humiliation and disappointment. What the hell was I even hoping for? That she'd have a drunken lapse in judgment, that she actually cared about me. Don't be ridiculous, Leo. She was right. I was just a thing, a toy that she found mildly amusing for the time being. I took a deep breath of the cold air, trying to clear my head, and with heavy steps, I turned and walked away. From that day on, my life became even more difficult. And yet, something had changed. She was still demanding, critical, and bossed me around constantly. She threatened to dock my pay for the smallest mistakes. But occasionally, on very rare occasions, she would do something strange. Like when I was pulling all-nighters for a project and was about to fall asleep at my desk, she would suddenly toss a box of expensive supplements at me and say coldly, "Don't die in my office. It's bad luck." Or when I took a drink for her at a dinner and ended up with a stomachache, my face pale, she would have the driver detour to a pharmacy to buy medicine, which she'd then toss at me with a sneer. "If you can't handle your liquor, don't show off." Useless. And then there was the time it rained, and I got soaked on my way to work. When she saw me, her brow furrowed in disapproval. That afternoon, a brand new, obviously expensive black umbrella appeared on my desk. She never said a word, and I never dared to ask. But the little spark of hope I wasn't supposed to have, like a weed after a rainstorm, started growing uncontrollably. I couldn't figure her out. One minute, she was crushing me under her thumb. The next, she was giving me these tiny, insignificant treats. I couldn't figure myself out either. I was terrified of her, but I was also starting to subconsciously pay attention to her. The brand of pen she preferred, the scent of the diffuser in her office. I memorized the exact temperature of her coffee, her preferred meeting style. I even started to look forward to walking into her office every morning just to see her sitting there, even if I was usually met with a cold glare and a list of impossible demands. Like some kind of masochist, I was getting addicted. Ding! Host affinity for Conquest target is steadily increasing. Current 30 state of cautious dependence. Warning: do not indulge in false kindness. Remember your survival mission. The system would occasionally pop up to throw cold water on me, but I couldn't control myself. That psycho stalker sweetheart module seemed to be working on me, too. A part of me knew she was probably just playing with me, but another part of me couldn't help but feel my heart race at her twisted displays of concern. I felt like I was walking on a tightrope, and below me was a bottomless abyss. The turning point came one weekend. I got a call from back home. My mom was in the hospital and needed a huge sum of money for surgery. My family wasn't well off, and I hadn't saved much from my job. I panicked. I took a leave of absence and rushed to the hospital. Looking at the bill, at the astronomical figure, and at my mom's tired face, I was so stressed I could barely think. I called everyone I knew to borrow money, but it wasn't enough. My dad just squatted in the hallway, chain-smoking and sighing. The helplessness and despair were crushing me. I was even considering taking out a loan from a loan shark. Just as I was at my wit's end, I got a text from my bank. A huge sum of money had been deposited into my account. The amount was exactly enough to cover the surgery and all the follow-up treatments, with some to spare. I was stunned. My first thought was that the bank had made a mistake. Then my phone rang. It was Isabella Sterling. My heart skipped a beat. I answered, my hand trembling. "Miss Sterling." Her voice on the other end was as cool as ever. "Did you get the money?" It hit me instantly. It was from her. "Miss Sterling, how did you know?" My voice was shaking, a mix of shock, gratitude, and 1,000 other complicated emotions. Your emergency contact is listed with the company's HR department, she said flatly, as if it were the most trivial thing in the world. The HR manager reported your situation to me. The money will be deducted from your salary and bonuses for the next 10 years. If that's not enough, you can pay it off with the rest of your life. Take care of your mother. I expect to see you in the office on Monday morning on time. Be 1 second late, and the interest doubles. With that, she hung up. I stood there listening to the dial tone, unable to move. My eyes started to burn. My heart felt like a shaken bottle of emotions, all fizzing up at once. Eventually, it all settled into a sour, hot feeling that washed over me. She knew. She knew everything. She didn't even ask a single question, just sent the money. In her own unique, cold, and domineering way. She had both preserved my pathetic shred of dignity and solved my crisis. 10 years' salary? The rest of my life to pay it off? I knew she didn't need the money. She was just using this to tie me to her even tighter. But I shamefully, completely, and utterly fell for it. All my previous fear, anxiety, hesitation, and struggle. It all crumbled under this one direct hit from her. I leaned against the cold hospital wall, slowly sinking to the floor, and buried my face in my arms, and my shoulders started to shake. It's over. Leo Carter, you're completely done for her. You know she's probably just taming a pet. You know that this kindness could be a deeper trap. But you still, hopelessly, fell right into it. My mom's surgery was a success. I took care of things at home and returned to the city a day early. Monday morning, I was outside her office half an hour early, as usual. In my hands, I held a fresh croissant from the ST. Regis and her specific yogurt, which I'd had across half the city to get. And a cup of coffee I had practiced making countless times, brewed with water at exactly 198 degrees, a 30-second extraction, and milk steamed to 149 degrees with a 1-centimeter foam. At 8 a.m. sharp, the sound of stilettos echoed down the hall. Isabella Sterling appeared. She was wearing a smoke gray suit today, her aura as cool as ever. She saw me and the things in my hand. Her pace didn't falter, but her gaze seemed to linger on my face for a fraction of a second longer than usual. Then, as always, she ignored me and walked straight into her office. I followed her in. I placed the coffee and breakfast on her desk. Then I took a step back and stood at attention. She put down her bag and sat. She first picked up the coffee, inspected the foam, and took a sip. She put the cup down. No comment. Then she picked up the croissant and took a small bite. The entire time my palms were sweating. I felt like I was awaiting a final judgment. She finished her breakfast and wiped her hands with a napkin. Only then did she look up at me. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe. "You look all right," she said coolly. "You didn't manage to work yourself to death." I lowered my head. "Thank you for your concern, Miss Sterling." "Was the money enough?" she asked. "Yes, it was more than enough. Thank you so much, Miss Sterling. I'll pay you back as soon as I can." I blurted out. "I told you, it will be deducted from your salary." She cut me off, her tone absolute. "Doing your job well is more important than anything." "Yes, Miss Sterling," I replied respectfully. She seemed satisfied with my obedient demeanor. "What's on the agenda for today?" She shifted into work mode. I immediately pulled out my tablet and smoothly recited her schedule, meeting plans, and the important documents that needed her attention. I was clear, concise, and accurate. This was the result of several sleepless nights spent memorizing her habits and preferences. She listened and nodded. "HM, you finally grew a brain. You can go now. Bring me the meeting materials at 9 a.m. sharp." "Yes, ma'am." I turned to leave. My hand was on the doorknob when her voice stopped me. "Wait." I paused and turned back. "Is there anything else, Miss Sterling?" She looked at me, her fingers tapping lightly on the desk. She was silent for a few seconds. Then she spoke. Her voice seemed a little softer than usual. "I'll give you the afternoon off. Go take care of the follow-up procedures for your mother's hospitalization." I was stunned, looking at her in disbelief. She remembered that. She was giving me time off. My heart felt like it had been hit by something warm and soft. "Miss Sterling." Thank you. You don't have to. I can take care of it after work." I was so touched I was babbling. "Just go when I tell you to." She frowned, seemingly annoyed. "Get those trivial matters sorted out. Don't walk around here with that worried look on your face. It affects my work efficiency." Her tone was still harsh, even dismissive. But I heard, underneath it all, a very awkward thread of concern. I looked at her, sitting behind her massive desk. The sunlight streamed in, bathing her in a soft golden light. Her brow was slightly furrowed, her expression still cool. But in that moment, to me, she was breathtakingly beautiful. The system, the missions, annihilation, conquest, it all faded away. It didn't matter anymore. There was only one thought in my mind, crystal clear and unshakable. I was done for, and I accepted it, even if she was poison, an abyss, a demon who would devour me whole. I would willingly, gladly, jump in. Miss Sterling, I heard my own voice, tinged with an imperceptible tremor, and a desperate, all-in kind of resolve. The money, I might not be able to pay it back in this lifetime. So, for the rest of my life, I'm yours to command. Is that okay? After I said it, my heart pounded wildly. I didn't dare look at her reaction. The office was silent. The only sound was the deafening beat of my own heart. After what felt like an eternity, I slowly raised my eyes. Isabella was still sitting there. Her expression seemed to have frozen for a moment. She looked at me, her gaze deep and complex, swirling with emotions I couldn't read. Surprise, amusement, scrutiny, or a hint of satisfaction? She didn't answer right away. She slowly stood up, walked around her desk, and came toward me. Her heels made no sound on the carpet, but each step landed on my heart. She stopped in front of me, close, so close I could see my own reflection in her eyes. She raised her hand. This time I didn't flinch. I didn't feel fear. I just watched her. Her fingertips landed on my tie, just like the first time, and slowly looped around it. Then, she tugged gently, pulling me toward her. I leaned in willingly. Her red lips brushed against my ear. Her warm breath, carrying her unique cold scent, ghosted over my skin, sending a shiver through me. And then I heard her voice, low and clear, laced with a bewitching smile. "All right, you're the one who said it," she whispered. "Mean it." The word was electric. It shot through my entire body, numbing, burning. Somehow I managed to hold my ground and, even subconsciously, lean a little closer. Isabella seemed pleased with my reaction. The hand on my tie let go, instead patting my cheek with that familiar, humiliatingly intimate gesture. Finally said something worthwhile. She pulled her hand back and returned to her desk, her tone all business again. "Get back to work. One typo in the 9 a.m. meeting materials, and I'm docking you $1,000. The romantic atmosphere shattered instantly. But for some reason, I felt a strange sense of relief. Right? This was the real Isabella Sterling. If she had suddenly become gentle and sweet, I'd have been terrified. "Yes, Miss Sterling." I lowered my head, but I couldn't stop the corners of my mouth from curving up slightly. I walked out of the office, closing the door softly behind me. I leaned my back against the cool wall and let out a long, silent breath. I touched my still-burning ear. The sweetness in my heart, mixed with a little bit of sourness, was bubbling up. No hope for me. Leo Carter, you're completely and utterly hopeless. The days that followed were the same, but different. She still ordered me around, criticized me, called me useless. Threats to dock my pay were her go-to. But I felt like I could gradually taste something else in her cold words. For example, after I stayed up all night to finish a complex industry analysis for her, I showed up the next day with dark circles under my eyes. She glanced at me, her brow furrowed so deep you could get lost in it. "You look awful. Go to the lounge and sleep for an hour before you offend my eyes again." Then she tossed me the key card to her private lounge. I'd only ever seen that lounge from a distance. It was ridiculously luxurious. I held the key card, stunned. "Miss Sterling, it's fine, I can't." "Do I need to repeat myself?" Her gaze turned frigid. I immediately backed down and scurried into the lounge. Lying on the incredibly soft bed, surrounded by the same cold scent that clung to her, my heart pounded so hard I couldn't sleep. I don't know how I eventually drifted off. When I woke up, exactly 1 hour had passed. Not a minute more, not a minute less. I tiptoed out. She didn't even look up from her computer as she slid a file toward me. "You're coming with me to meet this client this afternoon. Familiarize yourself with the material beforehand. One mistake, and you know the consequences." I picked up the file and noticed several key points and notes about the client's preferences written in the margins in fine ink. The handwriting was sharp, hers. My heart skipped a beat. I looked up at her. She was focused on her screen, her profile cold and hard, as if the notes were nothing. I clutched the file. "Thank you, Miss Sterling," I said softly. She ignored me, but I thought I saw the corner of her mouth twitch into the faintest of smiles. It was gone in an instant. Another time, at the company's annual holiday party, I used to be the guy who hid in the corner and stuffed his face. Now, as the CEO's assistant, I had to stand by her side and entertain a parade of people. My face was starting to hurt from smiling so much. She was in her element, shielding me behind her and handling most of the conversations herself. If anyone tried to draw me into a difficult conversation, she would shoot them a cold look and effortlessly redirect the topic. She protected me completely. Halfway through the night, I went to get a drink and was cornered by two executives from another company who were trying to force me to drink with them. Just as I was trying to figure out how to get away, she appeared out of nowhere and smoothly took the glass from my hand. She smiled at the two men, but her eyes were cold. "My assistant is a lightweight. I'll take this one for him." And with that, she drained the glass. The two men looked uncomfortable and quickly made an excuse to leave. She put the glass down and glanced at me. "What are you standing there for? Go get me some sparkling water." "Yes, ma'am." I hurried to get the water, my heart feeling full and warm. When I came back, she was leaning against the table, gently massaging her temples. Under the lights, her cheeks looked a little flushed. "Miss Sterling, are you all right?" I asked, handing her the water. She took a sip, her voice flat. "Why wouldn't I be?" After a pause, she added, as if it were an afterthought, "At events like this, stay close to me. Don't wander off." "Okay," I mumbled, looking down. The butterflies in my stomach were going crazy. But the moment that really got me was an accident. We were in a nearby city for an important partnership meeting. On the way back, our car was rear-ended by a drunk driver. The impact was sudden. I didn't even have time to react. All I heard was a loud crash, and the car jolted violently. She was in the back seat, reading a file. The inertia sent her flying forward. My mind went blank. Without a second thought, I threw myself over the seat, putting my arm between her and the front seat. Her elbow slammed into my forearm. The pain was sharp and I winced. Files scattered everywhere. "Miss Sterling, are you okay?" I ignored the pain and immediately asked her. Isabella seemed shaken, her face a little pale, but she quickly composed herself. She looked at my arm, which was already starting to swell and turn red, and her brow tightened. "What are you doing?" Her voice was sharp, laced with a kind of furious urgency I had never heard before. I was afraid you'd hit your head." I was a little stunned by her tone and mumbled my explanation. The driver had already gotten out to deal with the other car. It was just the two of us inside. She grabbed my wrist, her grip strong, her fingers cold. She examined the injury on my arm. The angry red swelling looked even more pronounced against her pale skin. Her expression grew darker, her eyes dangerously cold. "Who told you to be a hero? You think I can't protect myself? Showing off." She yelled at me, her words sharp and fast, but I noticed her fingers were trembling slightly. I was too scared to say anything, but strangely I felt a little happy. I must have hit my head. After examining my arm, she abruptly let go and pulled out her phone. She coldly demanded a new car and a doctor be sent immediately. After hanging up, she stared at me, her chest rising and falling. She was so angry. "Idiot, if you ever do that again, I'll break your arm myself." I looked down, sneaking a glance at her. Okay, that seemed to make her even angrier. She looked like she wanted to say more, but she held it back. Finally, she shot me one last glare and turned to look out the window, ignoring me. But the tips of her ears were a little red, maybe from anger or something else. The new car and doctor arrived quickly. She had the doctor look at my arm first. It was just a bad bruise, nothing serious. The doctor sprayed some pain reliever on it and said it would be fine in a couple of days. She stood nearby, her arms crossed, watching with a cold expression. Only after the doctor was done with me did she let him check her. She was fine, just a slightly twisted wrist, not even red, but she kept a straight face the entire time, as if she were seriously injured. On the way back, she sat next to me in silence. The tension in the car was suffocating. I didn't dare speak. Just as we were approaching the office, she suddenly spoke, her voice stiff. "You have tomorrow off. Go to the hospital and get an x-ray. You don't have to do that, Miss Sterling. It was just a bump, I'm fine. I was touched. I told you to go. She snapped, turning to glare at me. Stop arguing. Yes, ma'am. She was silent for a few seconds, then added stiffly, the medical bills will be covered by the company, and it's a paid day off. I looked out the window at the passing city lights, trying to hide the smile that was spreading across my face. Thank you, Miss Sterling. She just snorted and ignored me. But I knew. Something inside me had completely given way. And so, through her own twisted push-and-pull methods, I fell deeper and deeper. The system's affinity notifications would pop up from time to time. Ding! Isabella Sterling's affinity for host +5. Current, 65, state of deep control and gradual infatuation. Ding! Host affinity for Isabella Sterling +10. Current, 85, state of deep attachment and surrender. Warning, host's emotional investment is too high, posing a significant risk. Significant risk? To hell with significant risk. I was happy. I even started to deliberately ignore the stupid system. The days passed. I got used to preparing everything for her in the morning. I got used to her demanding commands and her sudden acts of concern. I got used to the contradictory feeling of being both nervous and at ease around her. I started to observe her more closely. I noticed she would secretly rub her calves after long meetings, so I left a box of muscle-relaxing patches on her desk, pretending it was nothing. She glanced at them, but said nothing. The next day, the box was gone. Later, when I went into her lounge to deliver a file, I saw the box on her bedside table, a few patches used. I noticed she got colder and more irritable around her period. So I would turn up the heat in her office a few degrees and secretly add a little extra milk to her coffee. The first time she tasted it, she paused and glanced at me. She didn't yell at me or make me redo it. After that, whenever that time of the month came around, she would just hand me her cup and say, "Extra milk today." I noticed she was a picky eater, but she never let on during business dinners. So I secretly took notes of her dislikes and would either coordinate with the restaurant beforehand or pretend to serve her, subtly moving the offending dishes away before she could touch them. She would always give me a look, her eyes filled with something complex, and she would let me get away with it. We developed a strange, unspoken rhythm. She was still the dominant one, in control of everything. But in the cracks of her authority, I could feel a little bit of indulgence, reserved only for me, and I was drowning in it. Until one night, I was with her at a charity gala. She was, as usual, the center of attention. I was talking with some business partners, and when I turned around, she was gone. After a quick search, I found her on the terrace. She was leaning against the railing alone, looking out at the city lights. She held a glass of champagne, her silhouette looking a little lonely in the darkness. I walked over. "Miss Sterling." She turned, and when she saw it was me, her expression seemed to soften for a moment. "Leo." She turned back to the view. "It's too loud inside." I stood next to her, not speaking, just sharing the view. The night wind was a little chilly. She was only wearing an evening gown, her shoulders bare. I hesitated for a moment, then took off my suit jacket and gently draped it over her shoulders. Her body tensed for a second, but she didn't reject it. "Leo." She said my name suddenly. Her voice was soft, almost lost in the wind. "Yes." I turned to look at her. Her gaze was still on the distant lights, which flickered in her eyes. "The rest of your life, given to me. Do you regret it?" My heart jumped, without a moment's hesitation. "No regrets." She was silent for a while. She gently swirled the champagne in her glass. "I'm a very selfish person. I'm controlling, I have a bad temper, and I don't know how to be good to people. Being with me will be tiring and difficult." Her voice was calm, as if stating a fact. "I know," I said softly. "I know all of that." She finally turned to look at me. Her gaze was deep, as if trying to see into my soul. "Then what do you want from me?" What did I want? I looked at her face, softened by the night, and my jacket on her shoulders, still warm from my body. My heart melted. "I want the occasional paid day off you give me." I tried to joke, but my voice was a little hoarse. She didn't smile, just looked at me. Her eyes were complex. I dropped the joke, took a deep breath, and gathered my courage to meet her gaze. "I want the person who pretends to be tough, but is actually soft-hearted, who calls me useless, but helps me time and time again. I want the person who has a bad temper, but allows me to push the boundaries. I want Isabella Sterling. After I said it, my own face flushed red, and I quickly looked away, my heart pounding. The terrace was silent except for the sound of the wind. She didn't speak for a long time. I was so nervous my palms were sweating. I was about to run away in embarrassment. Suddenly, I felt her hand gently take my wrist. Her fingers were still cool, but her grip was light. I froze and turned to look at her. She wasn't looking at me, but at the view. In the dim light, the tips of her ears were a faint pink. Her fingers slid down my wrist, and then she gently laced her fingers with mine. Our palms touched. Her warmth slowly seeped into my skin, warming me and my heart. I was stunned, my mind blank. All I could do was stare at our joined hands. Her fingers were slender but strong, holding me tight. Leo, she said my name again. Her voice was even softer than before, but it landed clearly in my heart. Remember what you said today. The rest of your life is mine. She paused, squeezing my hand a little tighter. No takebacks. I squeezed her hand back, nodding vigorously. My throat was tight. I couldn't speak, but my heart felt like a million fireworks had just gone off. So bright the whole world lit up. She finally turned to look at me. Her eyes reflected the city lights and my own foolish face. A very faint, but very real, smile spread across her lips. Idiot, she murmured. Her tone was filled with a fondness I had never heard before. The wind blew a strand of her hair across my face. It tickled, just like my heart. Ding! Ultimate mission complete. Isabella Sterling has told the host I love you, variant confirmed, and is willing to give up all her assets for you. Transfer control confirmed. Mission reward issued. Survival points permanently solidified. System unbinding. Congratulations, host, on successfully being conquered by the hell difficulty target. We wish you a happy life. Goodbye. The system's voice echoed clearly in my mind. Then, like a power cut, it went completely silent. The system that had tormented me, threatened me, and in a strange way, bound me to her. It was gone. I stood there, momentarily dazed. Just like that, it was over. Isabella seemed to notice my brief lapse in attention. She gently tickled my palm with her finger. What's wrong? I came back to myself, looking at her face, so close to mine, at the subtle softness in her eyes that was reserved only for me. The last of my anxiety and uncertainty melted away. I shook my head, holding her cool hand even tighter, trying to warm it with my own. Nothing. I just suddenly feel like this life was all worth it. She looked at me, the smile in her eyes deepening. She didn't ask any more questions. She just leaned against me, resting her head on my shoulder. Her gaze returned to the sparkling city lights. We stood there on the terrace, holding hands side by side, looking down at the vibrant world below. The gentle night wind wrapped around us. Her hair and my breath tangled together. I tilted my head slightly and gently kissed her forehead. She didn't pull away. Instead, she squeezed my hand tighter. In that moment, there was no system, no mission, no conquest. Just her and me, and the beginning of the rest of our lives.